Hello, everyone. We have today Razahk and there's Razahk. Hey, Razahk. And Francis, who will be telling us about their journey as emerging studios in animation. They are both from Ghana, and I don't know where they are right now. I think Razahk is in France, and uh, Francis, you're in Ghana. You're a globetrotter, so I'm not sure. Um, so so Francis will go first and tell us about his journey, and then followed by Razahk. We'll have like a short Q&A session where you guys can ask them questions, and then after that, we'll wrap up. So apologies that we only starting right now. We just had technical difficulties for a short bit, but now everything is resolved. Thank you for your time, guys, and you can take it from here, Francis.
All right. I'm sure all of you can hear me. Good morning. My name is Francis Yushao Brown from Ghana. And yeah, I'm a creative director and also the founder of AnimaxFYB Studios. AnimaxFYB Studios is Ghana's premium animation hub. And we produce work in 2D, 3D, and visual effects. Visual effects is mostly for film support. AnimaxFYB Studios was established in the year 2014. But before I start talking about my studio, I'd like to give you a little bit of my journey into the industry. I studied here in Ghana. I studied at the National Film Institute called NAFTI. And I studied animation. So I did a bachelor's degree in animation, but then I also studied other cinematic related subjects. 2 years for specialization and 2 years for liberal studies. And whilst I was at the school, I definitely knew that animation was my career path. So I was always looking at other schools, especially schools abroad, because I wasn't really getting enough of schools that were from the continent that were really pulling their weight. So I was constantly learning from international schools, their websites, and also some of their webinars. As at the time, it wasn't called webinars, but then, of course, some of their workshops and all that they upload on their websites. And through this, I was enlightened and also inspired to see some of the things or the trends that come into the industry. So I told myself I will always keep to those kind of standards. So as a third year student, what did I do? Third year is when you start specializing. I told myself the very first production that I do as a student would have to give me a headspace into the game as a student, not even as a professional. So during my school days, I told myself too that I will make all the mistakes that I can as a student, because then I can hide under that umbrella of being a student to get away with my mistakes, basically. So as I was following these trends, my student film got shortlisted at Kaboom. Now it's Kaboom Animation Festival, but it used to be Click Amsterdam Animation Festival. And this was in the year 2012. When it got there, fortunately enough for me, I won Emerging Animation Country of the year, and this was the start of the whole thing for me. It kick-started everything for me, because that would be the first time my school will win an international award, especially from the animation department. So it became big for me, and I gave myself a lot of pressure around that time, because I was like, okay, this is your third year production. What do you want to do for your final year? Because that will be your calling card into the industry. So I started doing research into stories. And I actually grew up in a home where my grandmother, I stayed with my grandmother, and my grandmother is a griot. She always told me stories every day. She told me new stories. So I went back into that story archives to look for stories that can catch our people and also can really go global. As I was doing it, one story kept on popping up. And one thing I've learned about storytelling is if you can relate to the story personally, you're able to tell the story in a very strong way. So the story of the migration saga of the Evers. And why was this particular story calling to me? I'm not an Ever. I'm from a different clan in Ghana. I'm a Fanti and also half Hausa. So I'm from the north and also from the western side of the country. But what happened was that I had moved from the western side, which is where I was born, to Greater Accra, the capital city of the country. So I've migrated. And also as a migrated person in Accra, I was always finding myself as a bit of a misfit because people didn't really understand my principles, my ideology in life. So the whole story of the Evers was also centered around one guy who was in a way misunderstood. And up to now, if you mention his name, they will tell you he was a wicked king. But then something happened for him to be wicked. So that's something that led me into my research. As a student, I started my research on the internet. I met some professors who have done some in-depth research into that subject. They led me to various villages to gather oral storytelling. And this oral storytelling search also led me to a different country, that is Togo, our neighboring country to the east. I went to Togo. Togo led me to Benin. Benin led me to Nigeria. And it was all back to back. I never came back to Ghana to prepare myself to go. And being so engulfed in the story and also having that hunger to tell the story and gather the research, I didn't pay attention to the fact that I was running out of money as a student. I mean, I'm not working, so I'm on a limited budget. I got to Nigeria, I did everything. Luckily enough, when I get to these countries, sometimes those that I'm interviewing give me a space to stay. So they feed me and accommodate me, but still I have to pay for certain things like my transportation and all that. I got to Nigeria and I was locked. I came back to Ghana through a woman who was also coming to Ghana, and she's a Ghanaian. So I spoke Fanti and she was like, "Are you a Fanti?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Okay, let's go." So she paid for me. I got to Accra, I started working on my project. And long and short of the story is that particular film, as my graduation film, won Best Animation Film in the school. Overall best film, so combining documentary, TV, fiction, and any other type of department in the school. Animation film won overall best film. It went to it won best film in Africa. It went to AMA Awards as well, that's Africa Academy Awards. Then we went for student Oscars, which was the very first time that my school had ever applied for the Oscars, the student Oscars. We applied for it, and it became the first West African school to be shortlisted to the student Oscars. And that is how I got into the industry. So when I got into the industry after school, there was two major things that were hitting my head. And I know that most of you have come to that crossroads before in your life where you ask yourself, what next? That question is the most curious question to ever ask yourself. So the what next question led me into a very big limbo and dilemma, thinking through my next steps. Because all I wanted to do was to tell stories, to be a creative, to just do fun stuff. But also I knew that I was a Pan-Africanist and I wanted to tell our stories, because all the stories I told during my school days were about our people. I wasn't too interested in telling fantasious stories because I felt like we need to start from somewhere before we get to all those very highly imaginative stories. So it was these two questions were staying back home to work here in Ghana, or to leave the continent because there are no opportunities for us, or for me, basically, in Ghana as at the time, because there was no full-time running animation studio to employ my service. All that we had around was agencies, and advertising agencies only use graphic designers and motion designers to do their advert. And if they would even animate anything, it would be just about 5 seconds of that. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to get my product being shelved. So what did I do? I decided to start my own animation studio. I got the opportunity to work for also some studios in Europe, which were very good. I was going to start from a very decent position, but I had to turn it down because I felt the strong need to start this studio for the fact that over the years, Ghana has been producing animation, or has been training animators for the past 60 years. And I'm sure none of you know about this. The country, maybe Razahk will know, the country has been producing animators for the past 60 years, but unfortunately, we've not really come out with any strong IP or any strong even feature-length film yet. And you ask yourself, why is it so? And it's because most of them ended up leaving the country. The best talent actually left the country and found somewhere for greener pastures. So I told myself, then I'll be that bridge, the bridge which will be to train and also to employ these talents who have the same ambition to produce films locally. And that is how AnimaxFYB Studio started. So Animax literally started from my hall. I had a 2-bedroom house, and I brought in people who were like-minded. And after a year or two, I was also teaching at the film school because they retained me as a teaching assistant for a year, but I didn't renew my contract because the studio was pulling it was pulling me a lot, so I had to drop it. And even as the studio was pulling me, after 2 years into establishing the studio, I had to also step back a little bit on my creative side, as in sitting behind machines to draw, to animate, to paint, to really pay attention to the business aspect of things, because the business was something that was also very new to me. As a creative, I never imagined myself to be an entrepreneur. I was just a creative, and entrepreneurship just happened to me by accident. No way for me to give excuses that now it happened to me by accident, so I just have to stay in it. But then I had to also increase my knowledge and also experience in the entrepreneurship field. So with this, I started running short courses. I attended short courses on entrepreneurship, reading books, talking to people, consulting here and there for advice to how to build the studio. And yes, the studio has been running for the past 8 years now. And through the 8 years, we've worked with some of the biggest agencies in the world. We've worked with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've worked with UNICEF. We've worked with World Food Program. We've worked with the government of Ghana. We've worked with the French Embassy, and also a lot of international and local agencies. And aside from that, we've also produced our own short films that has gone into numerous film festivals across board. And yeah, we are currently partnering with Le Gobelin to run a summer school in Ghana. And this will be happening in July. So that is where we are now. And that has been a brief of the journey. It will be a whole book if I should talk about it all. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Francis. Razahk, do you want to take over?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Razahk So I'll just jump straight to my journey and where I am now. So I completed University of Ghana. I was studying psychology, but then during my time studying psychology, I was more interested in animation, because the reason I studied psychology was there wasn't an avenue to study 3D animation. So before applying to the psychology course, I tried applying to schools outside of the country, 3D animation schools, but then there were no scholarships. So I just decided to do the next thing I was interested in, which was psychology. But at the same time, I was teaching myself animation. So I was doing like tutorials online. I was experimenting a lot with different techniques. And after the psychology course, I had like a little bit of a skill to start working. So I was doing freelance projects. I was doing like some motion graphic advertisements. And through that, I kind of got comfortable with doing character animation, because I started Aluta, which was an animated series. And I used that to practice character animation and just storytelling in general. And over about 2 years or one, the animated series started getting some traction. A lot of people were interested in it. So I started sending it out into competitions, which is what sent me to DLA. So Digital Lab Africa Pitch Competition. I applied and I was one of the winners. I was the audience. I won the audience award. So I got a chance to go to South Africa. I went to Discop. I met a lot of people. I networked with a lot of, and it was the first time I had that kind of access to the animation industry, because everything else was just me kind of learning on my own and doing like freelance projects for people around me. So this was the first time I actually had like contact with the industry. That was the first contact. And that went really well. And I came back, I think I was there for 10 days. I came back and I continued my work. I think I did a few more episodes of Aluta. And the next year, I got the opportunity to apply to Gobelin, the animation school in France, and I got accepted. So after I got accepted, I got notified that I got a scholarship to study the master's program. So that was really good news. And so I traveled in 2019 to France. And for the next 2 years, I was studying the master's program. And, excuse me, that was a very intense course. It was a very, I hadn't done any intense art, course. So it was very daunting in the beginning. In the beginning, I think the first year, there were times where I just felt like maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I should just find my way back home calmly and do my freelance projects. But it was nice meeting people from different parts of the world. And then you have people, everyone has a different culture, because the class is an international class. So you have people from all over the place. People have different ways of telling their stories. People have different methods of doing their art. So it was nice to also learn from them. And it was also nice when they could learn from me, because I was really good at 3D, but then not so much the 2D space. So like 2D animation, I had to learn all that in Gobelin. But before that, I wasn't too strong in those areas. So those areas gave me a really tough time. And those were the areas that kind of discouraged me in the journey. But then when it got to the 3D aspect, and then I also saw how other people were struggling with it and came to me for help, it just made me realize that you wouldn't be good at everything, but then you just have to be working on your weaknesses and then be ready to kind of share your strengths as well. So that kind of helped lift me up. So after the 2 years, I completed with a graduation film with my teammates. There was 5 of us in total. And then we made a short film, which recently won an Annie Award. And then it also got shortlisted in the BAFTA Awards. So that was also very exciting. And during the time working on the project, it didn't seem like much. You know, we're telling the story. We're so used to the story. We're so used to doing the work that was coming, you know, through the story. So we didn't see much of what it could do. So it was very nice that afterwards it got selected into festivals all over the world, and other people were appreciating the work. So it made us appreciate the work we did in the project a bit more. And so currently I am teaching and coordinating a 3D program in Gobelin. And in a few months, which is in July, we'll be doing a summer program in Ghana in collaboration with AnimaxFYB, Francis studio. And that's where I'm at now. And although I am teaching and coordinating, I also try to keep working on my projects. So I work on, or I am working on an animated series, trying to develop it and put it together and kind of see where it goes from there. But in the meantime, most of my time is spent teaching. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. So I'm really interested in storytelling. I'm interested in animation, and I'm interested in teaching and training as well. So it was nice to be able to put together with Francis as well the summer program in Ghana, because that's one of the important things. I probably was lucky to have had certain opportunities come up at the right times for me, even though in those times it didn't seem like the right time, because the right time for me would have been before going to do psychology, because that's when I was like looking for a school to attend to learn animation. But then it seemed like the right time was after psychology, because somehow psychology still helps with my animation, which is something I try to tell people as well. Like, no matter what field you come from, or no matter what other things you're interested in, you can find a way to let it help your animation. You can let it help your storytelling, because if it's psychology, for example, you understand human behavior a bit more. So then you can develop your characters in some very interesting ways. If you are from economics, then you can put certain aspects of that in your storytelling as well. Like if you are developing a story about like a country, for example, you know how to make the dynamics of the ruling class a bit more interesting, because you understand the economics, you understand human behavior as well from that. So I think every field kind of can help with the animation and the storytelling field. So yeah, I think that's it for now. That's what I have.
Thank you, Razahk, for sharing your journey with us. I forgot to mention, for those who don't know, because there's some other people that just joined the boot camp about this year, Razahk is the peer mentor for this current cohort that we have for DLA in the boot camp. So he's supposed to be giving you some home assignment for you guys to complete. And that is probably very mandatory for you to get the opportunities that he's talking about, because we have a couple of things that are coming up for each art form within the boot camp. So I don't know if anybody here has any questions. Please, if you have any technical difficulties, you can write your questions on the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. I have a question for Razahk. How long have you been in Goblan and how long have you been teaching? And did you ever think that this would be your trajectory
No,
when you were starting?
no, not at all. So I studied for 2 years, which was from 2019 to 2021. And then after that, I did some animation work for a studio in London for about 3 months. And then I went back to freelancing, and then I did some teaching for like a preparatory school for Gobelin. So Gobelin, they have their bachelor's courses and then the master's courses, but then they also have like a certain avenues where people can prepare for these courses, but then it's not tied to Gobelin. So I taught some of those courses. That was last year, in the beginning of last year. And then towards the end is when I started teaching long term. So then I started from November, and the program I'm coordinating now is going to end in July. So once it ends, I come to Ghana and then do the summer program in Ghana. And then from there, we see what happens again.
And what would you say, this is also for Francis, but you can start, Razahk. What would you say was the one thing that changed everything for you?
Honestly, it's hard to pinpoint one of them, but then I can talk about two of them. So one of them would be the fact that I kept on with the field, even though there were no like official avenues for me to learn. So having developed those little skills, the second would be DLA. The second would be Digital Lab Africa, because having that first access to the industry, it changed everything. Because then now I just going to the place, I met Leseho, who, was, I don't know if he had just completed Gobelin or he was in Gobelin, but talking to him and hearing him talk about Gobelin and meeting all the industry professionals in the scope, meeting the DLA members at the time, it kind of opened up a new world. You just see the things that are possible, and you can see the path you could take. So I think the first was just sticking to what I wanted to do. And then the second would be what's actually opened me into the industry. So that would be the main things.
Thank you. Shout out to DLA.
Shout out.
Yes. And Francis, what would you say was the one thing that changed your trajectory for you?
I think it was it's similar to Razahk's response. It was my third year production, which is titled Agrada. It was because of that. The moment I got to Amsterdam for the first time, being in Europe, and I saw how the community looks like, what animation can truly be. It really inspired me and told me that I told myself, this is it. This is the life that I want to have in terms of producing my work and getting it to places like this. And also for the fact that it was able to pay off my bills, because I never, people discouraged me a lot, thinking of it as something which is just for passion. Animation is just something with talent. You can't really fend off that career. So for the fact that it really quickly, for some reason, I was the poorest boy in my classroom when I got to school, university. And before I left school, because of illustration, digital art, and animation, I became, even those from the rich background, I became richer than them in the classroom, because I was paying my school fees and paying the school fees of other classmates and paying for hospital bills and all that. People were coming for me for loans. And I said, oh, this is going to be an interesting career to be in. Yeah, basically.
I think you're muted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So okay, let me start with the question that's here on the chat first before I pose my question. My question is for a person who's just created a studio. What would you say is the best way to get your first client as a studio?
Francis, do you want to get that?
Yeah, go first.
So the thing about getting a first client is the client you want to get should be able to know what value you can give them. So then it means that you should already have some works you can present. And there can be so many ways you can handle that. You know, in the past, what I used to do was I would look at a company and try to figure out what could interest them, and then start something small and then present it to them. So they see what I could do for them. And I don't go to them and say, what do you need? Because then they have to do the work of looking at what you do and see how you can help them. You have to like take that part away and then let it be just easy for them to jump on. So what I did in the past was I'll just see a company, look at what could interest them, start something and show it to them. If worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, you know, what I try to do is also whatever it is something I can change into something to fit a different company. So that's the approach I used back then. But then there's so many ways you can handle this. The most important thing is whoever you want to approach should see the value you can give them. That's it.
Yeah, so true, so true. So with my experience, my first commercial client was UNICEF. And how did they come to the table? It's just because their approach of storytelling is basically the way I was telling my stories. They didn't like the advertisement type of communication. So the more I was putting out storytelling forms of content, that is how I got all my clients. So far, even at the studio, we've only produced like advertisement type of content like twice. In our 8 years, we've only done that twice. We did it for a fast-moving commodity that's called Calipo. And also we did one for a canned malt drink. But as Razahk said, you need to also find your strengths and do things that really conforms with your values and push it out there. The more you put it out there, the more people see through your style and also get to understand you more. And they will come to you if they need that type of service.
Mm. Speaking of things that you guys are making, Francis, what are you busy with? And how can we access the stuff that you're making, Razahk? Do you have something that you can show us, Francis?
At the moment, I don't have anything I can show.
Okay.
But then what I am working on, I think I talked briefly about it with Francis. I'm working on a 10-episode animated series. And part of it would have a music album as well to go with the animated series.
Okay.
But then it can be hard to shop just a pitch Bible. So then I'm working towards, well, in the future, I would get some crowdfunding to create like a trailer for it. So it makes just basically working on different aspects of the project until it looks valuable to potential buyers, basically. So I'll eventually work on a trailer. I'll eventually just start putting out things. And I'm writing a novel for the book for the series as well. So at least until visuals start coming out, the book can be available for those who would like to check out the story. So
okay. Sounds exciting. Sounds
Right.
exciting. And you, Francis?
So the studio is currently, we've packaged a lot of different projects that we are currently raising funds for. And also we are working on the pre-production just to package it for a feature-length film that we want to produce. We're about to release our latest short film titled Jabari, and it should be out by June. But aside from that, we are working on commercials for World Food Program. We are working on a series for them.
Okay. There's a question here. Should you rent a studio space and hire staff before reaching out to clients? There's a belief that big clients prefer to work. So I don't know who would like to take that question.
I mean, I'd like to go.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
I mean, why would you want to put yourself in debt before you even start business? That's the question you need to ask yourself. So I believe that before you start a studio, you need to really have your stuff out there that is giving people that yearn for your work. Like, be attractive first. Let people start coming to you. And before you jump onto starting a studio or renting anything, see your capacity, what you're able to do all by yourself. If you're not a creative person, if you're not a creative person, I mean, if you're not able to do technical things yourself, there are a lot of freelancers around that you can use. So as you're using them and you realize that the demand for your service is becoming too much, then you can scale up by bringing in these technical people into a space, renting a space, buying more machines. But if you're a beginner, I would say start with your strengths. Make yourself attractive. Let people start coming to you before you think of spending money from your pocket.
And if I can add a little bit to that too, sometimes it's easy to just want to shoot for the big guys. But then the thing is, it's difficult to have a very big company see a new startup or a really small studio or an individual one-man studio, whatever it is. It's difficult to have like a big name trust that you can handle their projects. That's the thing. So even, like you basically just have to start somewhere, just start. That's why, you have people, maybe an artist he starts doing stuff for his family and friends. He goes outside that circle and then tries to build from there. It's very difficult to just shoot and try to get the big guys, because it's difficult for them to trust that you can handle the weight of the project they would like to give you. So just start slowly, start from your strengths. Just scale up, like Francis said, scale up when needed. You don't have to like hire and get all the space and everything before you try to get it works. It has more to do with like your work and what you can do for them more than your space and all of these things. So they all play a role, but then it's more important to look at what you also can handle as well.
Okay, I hope that answered you. Alice Penda is saying good morning, Mr. Brown, Mr. Isaka. Mr. Isaka, she's very glad to meet you again. Last year's coaching sessions have been very helpful. So far, we've been developing our project. I have a technical question. Which kind of arguments would you use to sell your animation project during a pitch? How to show a project is unique?
Well, I'll go first. How to show a project is unique is by showing the unique parts of the project. It's really simple, but then how to illustrate the uniqueness of your project is where you have to get creative. So if you have a project, you have to look at first of all, the motivation for your video is for your pitch is very important. If you have a story, which for someone gave this example, you have like a story of soldiers who are like, action movie and then they're running around. But then if you pitch that as an action movie, okay, it becomes difficult for them. They've seen it so many times. But then the same pitch was done by someone who said he's an ex-soldier. And then he comes back from war and then the government doesn't take care of them. They have like real issues. So you have them on the streets. And so this is like a gang of street ex-soldiers who came together to do a mission or to say something, to make a statement. In that case, this action movie is not just an action movie. It has some kind of strong motivation, has like some emotional connection to it. So if you're able to express that emotional part to the people you're pitching to, then they don't just see your project as a project. They see it as like a statement. They see the reason why you want to do it. So the most important thing is to figure out exactly why, like what makes your project strong, what makes it different from the others. And not to fabricate reasons why, okay, it's unique because of this, but then truly when you think of the motivations you had, the inspiration you had for, like, dig deeper into that and then try to express that in the purest form. Because people it's a story, right? They want to see the connection, that where is it coming from. So you can pitch the most amazing story, but if it's just, oh, I was just there one time, stories come like this too. Oh, I was just there one time, it just came to me. But then usually it doesn't just come to you that way. It comes from something that happened. It's part of your subconscious processing something. There's usually some real motivations to them. So if you're able to dig deep and find these reasons, and it's something that you can get your audience to relate to, then I think you have like a higher chance.
You said it all. Right.
I don't know if that answers your question.
This was okay. Let us know if that was good, or do you have a follow-up question? Kagiso is asking, are there any specific kind of projects that a company has to do in order to be sustainable? For example, graphic design work, or is it a different studio? Is it different from studio to studio?
So when it comes to this question, I mean, it goes back to, it's a very entrepreneurial type of question. And as a studio owner or someone who is running a studio, you would have to ask yourself, or you need to come up with your business model. And your business model will be the one to actually show you exactly how to make money. There are always different ways in making money, and it's not a specific type of thing that you do that will make, anything can make you money, but it's about how you do it and how you also present it. So with the studios model, my studios model at Animax, what we do is we rob Peter to pay Paul. And we were doing that till we got to a point where we said we are not doing that again. And what were we doing to rob Peter to pay Paul? We were running commercials, working with these agencies, these UN agencies, and also other NGOs to raise the funds to produce our in-house project. But the thing that we were doing with these agencies were also in line with what we wanted to be doing. As I said, I never want to be producing anything that has expiring date, basically. And filmmaking is timeless. So if we are telling stories, then it means that our product will be there for long. So we weren't working with clients, we were picking and choosing from the briefs that we were getting. And it's so funny that as a startup, as around the time we were startup and we were picking and choosing portfolios, briefs. And it's because I didn't want to also spread myself thin. There's an easy way where you get trapped into spreading yourself thin if you want to be an agency. If you want to be an agency, then one, you need to know that you don't own your creative voice anymore. You are going to also use a lot of templates. You're going to, at some point, lose credibility, because what the agency world is that year in, year out, budgets are being cut. So if the budget for productions are going down, ask yourself, are you going to be in the space where you're also going to cut down the pay of your workers? So if you're going to cut down the pay of your workers, it means that you're not going to grow. So you need to be strategic in the way that you add value to your agency, your company. But I saw it to be more of a storytelling company that I stick to, that solely storytelling. So you come to me, it means that you have a story in mind or at heart that you want to tell. And it's not going to go through selling a product. No, I don't unfortunately, I don't sell products, but yeah, you need to figure out your model that will bring you that money. Because this question is a money question. It's not even about creativity, it's straight to the money. So you need to know where your stronghold is and you push on that.
And to use something you said in the previous question as well, you have to be careful when you're selling your project. You don't have to seem like you're selling a product to them. Like, for example, I read something somewhere. It said Coca-Cola doesn't sell drinks, it sells happiness. Rolex doesn't sell watches, they sell status. So when you look at the reasons why people are buying these things, it's what you should focus on when you're trying to pitch and when you're trying to like present things to people. You don't want to seem like, oh, I'm trying to sell you this. This is why you should buy it. No, just present the value to them. That's it. If they see the value, then the rest of the job is done.
100%.
Tandile is, thank you for that, guys. Tandile is asking, as a startup, would you guys recommend create and sell so you can keep the studio running, or hold on to the IP?
Francis, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I want to, Sino was cutting, so I want to read the question.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I mean, as a startup, it means that you're already running as a studio, and it depends on your head overs. I mean, if you can afford to just stick to creating your own, packaging your own content and pitch it, then it means that what you want to do is you want to go into the big leagues. You want to create films. And it will mean that you would have to have some cushioning for yourself. So if you're coming from a supportive background that you can just relax and do your stuff, fine. But then if it is a startup that is already having people relying on the studio or the company for their salary, for their bread and butter, then you would have to definitely come up with strategies that will bring in money, because you can be doing all the most creative stuff in the world, the most inspiring stuff, but then the moment your workers start feeling their tummies rumbling, that project will go down. It won't see the daylight, because then they will start feeling uninspired and also not being appreciated. And to be appreciated in these days, it's not just by your words or actions, but it's also through the money. So yeah, you need something that will sell.
Razahk, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think when it comes to studio, Francis has got it. So
okay. If there's no more questions, I'm just gonna launch one more poll. Please fill it in so that I know that you did attend. Other than that, if there are more questions, I think we've wrapped up this session quite nicely. Thank you for your time, Francis, and thank you for your time, Razahk. I just wanted to ask one thing from you, like if you would advise the guys in the DLA cohort that where they are right now is a great place, and to just keep at what they're doing, because right now we have like a nice mix of guys that are beginners, that are starting, skilled, some just have concepts. But I just wanted to emphasize how important a program like this is, and the fact that it can open up so many doors for a person that is determined. I have Eduardo here. We're wrapping up. Do you want to say hi?
Is it finished?
No, that's it.
Hi, everyone.
hey,
Hey man, hi.
That's good. Have they talked about the Ghana?
No, Razahk mentioned it a little bit.
Okay.
Do you want to do the official thing?
Well, just for people to keep in mind, there is some possible opportunity that might be popping up. We just had a meeting with Francis yesterday, so we'll share more information about that probably next week. So, a possible opportunity for a kind of summer school in Ghana, which, I mean, that sounds amazing. I want to try. I want to do it.
I want to go to Ghana.
We're just trying to see where and how we can support that in terms of funding, because that would require, that's an in-person opportunity. So just for that kind of animation, people or 3D animation, but we'll have some more details on that in terms of how you could apply, even if you're not in 3D and maybe between now and the summer school. So we'll have some more info about that later. Oh, has our internet frozen?
No, I can see Razahk moving.
Okay.
Okay, so let's okay, there's another question on the chat here for the lecturer, that's Razahk. We know you're very busy, but could we send you some animation projects in development for criticism?
Yeah, you can. I will.
This guy is very busy.
I will do my best. Maybe it might not be the most detailed, but I would surely get back to you. I know.
Thank you for that.
I have not been able to reach Alice. Get back to her on something she sent me, but I will get back to you. Send them to me. Yeah.
Any last words, guys, to the cohort?
So I would say that there's no better place than a place that challenges you. And it can be very difficult to try and navigate this whole animation space and try to improve your skill as you learn the business aspect and try to connect with people. It's a lot of things. But then once you're in it, it's where you're supposed to be. And there's no better environment than people who are like-minded, but then are still within different spaces and still want to improve as well. So just keep at it, and just whenever you feel discouraged, just know that you're not alone. And even those who seem like they are doing really well have exactly those same situations happen to them. So it's all good.
Right. So mine will be about, it's just one word: pay attention to details. That's all.